Waiting. Awesome. Hey everyone, thanks so much for taking the time this afternoon to join this conversation. I hope everyone enjoyed a nice long weekend as well, and a nice holiday weekend. Getting back, the timing I'm sure is crazy. Interns have just started, are starting today, or are starting next week. So thank you so much for taking the time today. We will be recording the session just for some housekeeping, and we'll be sending it to everyone afterwards. Throughout the conversation, we are going to hold questions until the end for a Q&A portion. Feel free to drop any questions throughout the conversation in the chat or in the Q&A box, and I will make sure we try to get to as many as possible before we wrap up the conversation today. Um, Awesome. So, without further ado, let's dive into today's topic of best practices for intern manager training and management. It's super timely, I thought, in terms of the conversation, as your interns are starting there and how integral it is for our managers to actually hopefully do what we're asking and telling them that they need to do because they are so integral to the intern experience, over and over. I always make this joke. I hear from a lot of UR teams, sometimes managing the managers is harder than managing the interns. So hopefully throughout the conversation today, we can provide you with some best practices about doing that. We'll walk through some data that I think just kind of sets the conversation as well. But for those that don't know me, I'm Parker, one of the co-founders at Abode. Me and my college roommate started this company because we had a less than ideal post-offer internship experience and thought, could there be a better way? So 4 years ago, we launched our product to really be the kind of Gen Z experience for program management, from Keep Forum to program management to alumni engagement to mentor matching and manager training. We're kind of here to be your virtual program manager, for lack of a better term. I love this space. I love having these conversations, and you all are here to hear from our rockstar panelists. So without further ado, Caitlin, I'll kick it to you as well for a quick intro.
Oh boy. Hi, everyone. I am very excited to be here. Caitlin Peaker. I lead our early talent and talent discovery team here at MongoDB. I've been in the early talent space for about 15 years. Absolutely love this space. But added on to my workload over the last 3, 4 years. MongoDB seems to do that. You join, you show that you can take on more, and they give you the opportunity to do that. So, really excited to be here and talk through, the manager world. I agree, Parker. It is harder to manage managers of interns than actual interns at times. And there's always a few hand-holding cases that we have to do. But yeah, I guess who am I turning it over to?
Katrina.
Awesome.
Thanks, Caitlin. Hi, everyone. I'm Katrina. I work at CrowdStrike. I've been here now for 3 years, specifically a program manager working with the intern program. So I've been here 3 years, but this is my fourth intern program technically with the company. And every year we grow a little bit more, but definitely agree. Managers have definitely been a growing point for us and something that I've had to learn to work with. I previously was in higher education, any student affairs folks on the call, anyone who worked in housing, that was my world. But now I am intern program land. So I'll
Hey,
hand it over to Jacob.
hey, Katrina.
Yeah.
Hey, could you share just a bit about your program size and scope? Sorry, Caitlin, I'll ask you to do the same. I forgot to throw that on our intros.
No, absolutely. We have about 300 interns or so that join every summer. Our program is about 12 weeks long with a little bit of variation depending on the team. We have MBA interns, general interns, as well as launch interns, which our launch program is our sophomore level, junior level interns that would likely come back for a return internship a second year.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Amazing. That was probably my fault, Parker. So, our internship varies from anywhere from like 100 to 170 interns. This year we went a little bit lighter, so we're around the 100 mark globally. We are in EMEA, APAC, and the mayor's offices. So, We have our internship that runs about 10 weeks during the summer, June to August. We also have a new grad rotational program that starts twice a year, one in February, one in August. And then we have our early ID summit that we do every May. So we have different programs going on, but the ones that we really focus on our manager support are mostly our intern program and our new grad programs.
Awesome. Thanks, Caitlin. With last, certainly not least, Jacob.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jacob Reese. I'm a senior human resource generalist at UHY. We're a top 25 public accounting firm in the United States, top 16 globally. So I have been in with UHY just shy now of 3 years. Before that, like Katrina, I also was in the higher education space. I actually started off in the fraternity and sorority life world, working for my fraternity's headquarters as a traveling consultant. And then I eventually made my way to the University of Kentucky, where I worked in a dual housing slash like fraternity and sorority support role, and then made my jump into the corporate space. I started out at UHY for my first 2 years on our campus recruiting team and kind of really laid the foundation for our strategy, and really just the general foundation of what we were kind of doing. Didn't really have a lot to build off of at the time. For our Midwest region, which for us is very large, incorporates multiple states. Um, and I'd say for our intern program, because we are a public accounting firm, we see interns at 3 times of the year. We see them in spring, obviously for a busy season, good old tax season, the summer, and then also a small group in the fall. So I'd say year to year, we probably see about 75 to 100 interns for our region, and probably a good 200, 250 firm wide. But then we also kind of provide a very similar experience in the world of public accounting. Like an intern and a new staff are almost synonymous in terms of the responsibility and kind of the level of autonomy we give. And so we also have like new staff too that we treat very similar to our intern program as well.
Thanks, Jacob, and thanks y'all for the quick intros. I promise I will not bore everyone with a whole bunch of data and just read off the slides, but I wanted to just ground the conversation and get our kind of wheels turning for why, we thought this was such an important topic to bring up and have these three experts bring their perspectives on how they are effectively training and managing their managers for for their programs themselves, right? So this is data from everywhere within the early career landscape, but one from NACE saying 69% of interns say that feedback is critical regularly, but only 40% are actually receiving it consistently, right? I think this goes to wanting to make sure that our managers have that structured feedback, and a bit of a misalignment from expectations versus reality from this specific NACE survey here. 43% of interns reporting unclear expectations from their managers. I know a lot of teams will put together templates for managers to be able to utilize for this, but right, how can we ensure that there are as clear as possible expectations from their managers? What can we do as program managers pre-program to even help to expedite and kind of set forth some of those expectations as well? For the interns to make sure there isn't that misalignment in expectations versus reality. Only 26% of intern managers receive formal training. There can be an understanding sometimes that someone's been an intern manager for 5 years. They know what they're doing. They don't need the new training over and over again. We like to, say that that's probably not the best case or a best practice, and we'll hear some best practices for how these three individuals, their programs, are ensuring that their managers are receiving that formal training and process as well throughout. Gen Z, who we're recruiting, right? What they're looking for from their programs, looking for that career development and mentorship as a priority. But maybe their intern managers themselves, from the data, 55% saying that they feel that they're not getting enough of that career development and path. I'm not going to say that this is all falling on managers, right? The program that we're putting forth also parlays into making sure they have that career development. But again, I think just continuing to heighten the emphasis that this generation has on getting a bit more hand holding throughout the process, right? And that can parlay into how we're training our intern managers as well for the experience. And this should be the last one, but 60% of interns say their decision to accept a return offer was influenced by their relationship with their manager. I think this is priority one, critical, right? If you like your manager, all of us right now, if you like your manager, you're probably more willing to stay. Looking back, if you were an intern and you're still working at the company that were an intern for, your manager probably had something to do with, right, why you would want to come back and work there full time. And so all of this data is just trying to show, right, the emphasis of and why we're having this conversation about, why we think at Abode intern manager effectiveness and training is of utmost importance before the program even starts, as well as throughout the program itself. Um, and is why we have these three panelists today to share a bit more. But I mean, I have one more data point here. 81% of Gen Z employees prefer frequent communication with managers, but only 25% of intern managers adjust their communication cadence. This speaks to the generational gap, right? If it is a younger manager versus with someone that's Gen Z, this might not be as relatable. But ultimately, how can we influence as much as possible our managers to be, the best person for that relationship that they have as well. So, Katrina, I'm curious at CrowdStrike, why do you all view your intern manager training as so important? You're coming fresh off of your intern manager training as well, so the timing couldn't be better for this.
Yeah, definitely. Managers are a huge support piece for interns. For us, we're primarily remote. We do have some offices, but most of our interns are remote working. And so their manager is that piece of connection to the company, along with our team, of course. And we've had interns come back and accept full-time offers because of their manager. And so really recognizing and also sharing those pieces of feedback with our managers, because trying to make it full circle for the managers is really important to kind of show like, no, what you're doing is actually important, what you're supporting is important because it helps the growth of the intern. But truthfully, the one word I come back to is just support. And for us, it's because of the remote environment and as students are coming from, they had school remotely, but they might not have had a work position remotely before, and it is a little bit of a transition, and the manager really helps with that transition a lot.
Have y'all, Katrina, shifted how you done your manager training based on kind of the differing landscapes of remote versus in-person, work for the program participants?
Yeah, we have, oh my gosh, we have we might have a lot. We have guides, we have toolkits, we have live trainings. What's really nice too is that our L&D team, our learning and development team, hosts general manager professional development sessions throughout the year. And so managers are really encouraged to take those sessions, regardless if they're working with an intern or not. So we also rely on those trainings as well. So in general, managers get a lot of support, I guess, in themselves
No.
to just learn and professionally develop. So,
Jacob, in kind of the public accounting and consulting space, do you all have similar thoughts? How does UHY and your team think about, the importance of this training for you've got three programs throughout the year, which might be a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is for us, I think it's more important to focus on kind of like why we have to adapt, because the world of public accounting is so competitive, and we really do, and I think across the board, all the public accounting firms will really sell the same experience of like the work you're doing is going to be the same no matter what. It's the people that really separate and make the difference for you. Like how you do a tax return at one company is the same form you're going to use for another, right? And so it's really integral for us, especially because the pipeline for people going into the world of public accounting is vastly shrinking. We're seeing less and less students going into the field because they're finding that the world of finance is more lucrative, or, the CPA with all the changes to it is really causing some initial barriers. And so for us, we really had to make sure that we really tightened this up and ensured that like our managers were providing that really strong experience for our interns, because it's the companies like us that are really focusing on this and giving it attention and giving that proper additional training that I think are going to continue to see really strong conversion rates and continue to stay competitive and stay in the top 25 and stay relevant in the industry versus the ones that maybe aren't able to prioritize this or maybe are choosing not to or don't see it as much of a priority, like are definitely going to fall behind pretty quickly.
Yeah, 100%. Caitlin, I'm curious with kind of your global lens as well, right? Is there differences in global, training that y'all do? And, how do you think about what's at stake if it's not done well?
Yeah, I mean, from a global lens, no, I don't think we don't do anything different, right? So we hold global trainings. I mean, time zone wise, I think that's the only difference. But we run our program really the same and consistent throughout any of the regions. So that's important to us to make sure every single intern is getting the same experience, getting consistent experience. But there's a lot at stake. When manager trainings are skipped, I feel like, or under prioritized, I feel interns are often left feeling confused or unsupported. We've seen examples where interns didn't receive consistent feedback, and as a result, they had lack of clarity on how they were performing, which led to either like a missed offer or a decline offer. I also think untrained managers may assume interns can figure it out. But most of the time, they do need structure. They need clarity, especially in a remote or hybrid environment. They need regular check-ins. So, I would say my last point that I think something that's at stake ultimately is the harm of a company's employee brand. If an intern has a bad experience based on their mentorship or a program design, most likely a manager experience, that can harm a company's on Glassdoor or Blind or any of the platforms out there, and ultimately make it harder to recruit top interns in the future.
I really appreciate that because I think, the more you can do in the program experience, managers included, parlaying into that, right? The more that you can hopefully impact in a positive route your employer brand because someone speaks about how amazing their manager was and how you have to go try and work for this manager, right? So it's a trickle down effect as well. Jacob, at UHY, did you all have like an aha moment where, you were like, we need our intern managers need a bit more support?
Yeah, so we did. I think the biggest moment for us was when I was getting such consistently good feedback when I was in the campus recruiting space that the main partner over their department was getting such positive feedback from the interns, and they felt like that individual was doing such a good job at providing consistent expectations and feedback, etc. But the reality is that our partners, they do find opportunities to work with our interns in moments, but they're not the ones that are mainly doing it throughout the experience. Like it's really our managers and senior managers, and sometimes our principals. And I think we started to realize that we'd done such a good job at training our partners, our top leaders, that we were kind of neglecting the middle management level. And so after we started to kind of dig in and get feedback about, well, how about your, day-to-day manager? Like, how is that going? And we're getting such such inconsistent feedback. Some people were being really awesome and getting really strong feedback, and some were getting really poor. That we realized, okay, well, we clearly just need to do some general expectation setting here because it doesn't seem like that everyone's on the same page of the same approach of how they are managing interns. And so, um, I think that when we were really thinking about, this particular problem, we were trying to be really intentional um, about that because similar to Caitlin's point about you know brand issues, I think on the flip side of when you have really strong brand, which we do on several of our key campuses, we don't even really have to do some recruiting at some of those places because the students are so willing to talk to each other about their experiences that they're basically doing the recruiting for us. They're selling the company on our behalf. And so we have some schools like my alma mater, Truman State, I'm based in St. Louis, Missouri, where we have such a strong brand presence there that like we just churn Truman students all the time. Like I mean, we truly could not go there for a year, and we would still have interns coming to us with their interest because we make sure to give them such a strong experience, and then they go back and tell their peers about that. So that the part about that impact of the brand is so important. So I'm really glad that Caitlin brought that up too.
Katrina, you're coming fresh off like live training with intern managers. Could you talk a bit about kind of how you all structure it at CrowdStrike? What's worked really well, maybe something that didn't work that you changed over time?
Yeah, we offer live sessions that we have two specifically that we do but based on time zones because we have our UK partners as well who are managers and join the sessions. And then we record that session, make sure it's available for folks afterwards. But what we've really found is helpful is those things that happened behind the training, so to say. So a lot of those guides, we have a manager toolkit that we walk through on the training, and we also have it available afterwards so that folks can, click through, kind of learn at their own pace as they need to. We have a dedicated Slack channel. We're very, very Slack heavy. And so folks are quick to just jump in there and ask my team a question. And it's nice because they can just get the answer really quickly. And then on top of that, we also host office hours, or I should say office half hour for the week that their intern is onboarding. So if we had an intern onboarding last week, for example, on Monday, we held an office hour about Wednesday, Thursday for the managers specifically, so they can hop in, ask any questions that or just kind of hear what other managers might be dealing with. And so that's been really helpful in just seeing the level of engagement managers have because it's great to see when they actually join those sessions and then also just being a source of support. I think that's the most important thing I've learned is just being available for the managers, but also pushing them to read and make sure they know that they have the resources for themselves as well.
It's got to be a bit of a tricky balance, right? Of like how much you give versus wait to see, right?
Yeah, it definitely is a balance sometimes, and it's also a balance of like folks' learning styles. Like some people want everything, and what we're giving is not enough, and then some folks are like, "This is too much. Like, give me the nitty gritty." So something we also do is just giving them, essentially once they've hired their intern, you've hired someone, now what? And it's kind of a step by step, and that's how we kind of kick off our keep warm journey as well, because someone could get hired in September, have all this communication with their manager through the hiring process, and then they don't start their internship till May or June. And so we have a quick, like, kind of step guide of this is some of the things we recommend you do. And then we have all the extra stuff to kind of bring it to that next level.
I really appreciate that. Jacob, anything at UHY that y'all are doing unique, that you'd like to call out or found a lot of success with, or, things you found that you thought might have worked that didn't work that you could call out?
Yeah, similar to Katrina, we use like a very blended approach that's very scalable. I'd say some additional components that we have, we do a lot of the things that she does as well, but we also do just like some shorter, like asynchronous videos where we have those uploaded through our learning and development platform. We call it UHY University, where our employees constantly have access to that. And then we specifically target new managers whenever we see the promotion cycles happening end of year and we see that these people are getting ready to step into management um, beginning of January, or if they're moving into even like senior manager as well, going from manager to senior manager, because sometimes the roles shift there a little bit. We specifically set up one-on-one coaching sessions where we really have targeted conversations to just really make sure that people understand the expectations. We also really partner along with our learning and development team to ensure that those newer managers are entered into our ISP program, which stands for interpersonal skills, where it's about a 12-week program that they do kind of asynchronous, where they really focus on developing some of those interpersonal skills as it relates to management and being used to managing people for the first time. And I think like through those kind of major approaches and really being targeting about who we are working with and targeting those newer managers who are very eager and excited to be in this new role, but also are, I think, a little bit nervous to take up the reins of management. Um, we really, like I said, set up those one-on-one meetings, and we have a lot of success where we can have specific conversations that are individually tailored to them and allow them this like really free opportunity to ask us one-on-one questions.
It's interesting point that Katrina, you brought up as well of like the managers are super involved in the hiring process, offer signed, and then it's like, hey, see you in 9 months. Caitlin, how do y'all at MongoDB kind of think about when to almost re-engage and encourage the manager to reach back out or, be a part of, the process before the intern starts?
So ours is a little bit different. So we hire in pool hiring. So we don't know who the manager will be till about 6 to 7 weeks before the internship starts. Because we hire mostly, software engineering students. We do hire directly into teams, but again, with retention, we don't want to start the process with someone that accepts back in September until closer to the internship. So my team, the early talent team, does a lot of the keep warm engagement throughout the from accept all the way to when we assign the manager. So we
Yeah.
aim to engage our managers about 6 to 7 weeks when we assign. So mid-April, our internship, like I said, starts in June. And this gives time to review the manager review expectations, attend our hosted mandatory trainings, help plan an onboarding for their interns. We hold a few office hours, like Katrina said, prior to them starting, and then throughout the summer as well. And then we also found that early engagement, like that 6 to 7 week mark, leads to better onboarding experiences and and fewer last minute scrambles. We've noticed that as well. And then, of course, starting the process early gives managers time to think through intentional about how to support their learning, right? So one thing that we do is we send out like, how do you learn to our interns prior to them starting? And this gives managers more insight. Are they a hands-on learner? Are they a visual learner, etc. So the manager understands their learning style and can prepare for that. So those are a few things that we do early on to engage our managers before the internship starts. The other thing I'll add here is all of our early talent recruiters become program managers throughout the summer, which basically means they stay close to not only the intern, but the intern manager. So we connect with them every other week just for about 15 minutes. We offer guidance, we offer check-ins for them, like, did you give that feedback to them? And we've noticed an increase in consistent support and feedback given to the intern because we are pushing the mentor managers to do that versus only doing it twice throughout the summer.
I really appreciate that. Think that's super smart. Katrina, anything at CrowdStrike y'all are kind of doing to reinforce that kind of training or support throughout the program that you'd want to add? Because I really like that idea, Caitlin, as well.
Yeah, I'm similarly to Caitlin, definitely being there as a support, meeting with the managers, having the recruiters stay connected to their managers for the teams that they work with. It also just helps build that rapport and that um, I get not ownership of the program, but just support of the intern program itself once the same recruiter keeps working with that manager. So it definitely really helps.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. And I want to make sure we get through everything in an effort of time. I want to jump to just kind of, challenges, real world experience. I know we've kind of hit on this a bit here. But I guess Katrina, what's kind of, would you say the biggest challenge you've encountered with this that maybe someone in the audience right now has, and how you kind of overcame it or combating it being this kind of the fourth summer for you?
Yeah, time zones is always a big issue. Always working that. I don't, if anyone finds a solution, let me know. And just different, dealing with different, I would say learning styles with the managers. I really like what Caitlin said about asking the interns their learning styles, and I almost want to ask the managers their learning styles as well, because I've realized that as the years go on, we get managers who have done internship manager programming for several years, and they're kind of like, I got it. I don't need any support. But then they miss anything new that's been added. And then similarly, you get the new intern managers who are really eager, want all the information, and then they're trying to figure it out. So kind of finding the balance between the way managers learn, meeting their learning expectations where they're at, while still also supporting them in getting the information and learning on their own.
Yes, and Caitlin, you want to add there?
A few. I do agree with all those. I do think that coaching first-time managers through performance management and growth process is just difficult. Having difficult conversations is hard, right? So we do a lot of training around driving difficult conversations, giving feedback when needed. I also think that first-time managers don't know what good mentorship looks like. They may over-index on tasks and under-index on coaching or vice versa, and that can be confusing for them. So, giving them support of like what does good look mentorship look like? We came up with like a matrix last year for our PNG throughout the summer of different examples of like we have four ratings. So an SI1 is does not meets, SI2 is meets, often exceeds, and then consistently exceeds, I think it is. And so a lot of times they didn't know what we gave them examples of like which area, and they were so fixated on, oh, but they didn't do that example. Well, these are only just examples, right? You can definitely make decide what rating your intern should get. So I think that also has been a big challenge for us. And then of course, just manager burnout, bandwidth issues, right? The normal things throughout the summer. I'm working so hard, and I also have to mentor a really hands-on intern, right? And so that can be a challenge.
I was going to say, Jacob, how do you kind of get, buy-in from managers who may have been around the block? You're implementing a new training and they're like, why do I need to come to this training? I've done it for 10 years. Like, how do you think about kind of getting that buy-in, right, from managers to, you know, maybe you do have to join another half-hour call. Like you're getting an intern, you have to come. Like, how do you handle that?
Yeah. So because we work with accountants, they are very numbers driven people. And so knowing that very early on, I started to collect the data and show the year over year retention rate for someone coming in who didn't intern with us prior and never had an experience interning with their company versus people that have interned with us, and showed the discrepancy, the vast discrepancy in the fact that the people who come through our internship program are overwhelmingly stronger employees. They perform better, they stay longer. And so I kind of, paint the picture of like, hey, you complain about how you have changeover on your jobs year to year and you have to train new people to do this all over again. But if you really take the time to invest in these people now and you give them a really good experience and then you do convert them if they end up being really strong, which our recruiters are really good about sussing out really strong interns in general, they tend to end up doing really well and most of them end up getting offers, then you will have less turnover in the future on these jobs and you will have to do less handholding on these jobs and be able to get them to places where they can be really sustainable and self-sufficient on their own. And that really resonated with them. And I think the other thing too of keeping the sort of like humanistic component is a lot of we're thankful our company that we do have a lot of our leaders who were interns and have just kind of stayed. And we remind them of like, think about like how transformative your first accounting internship was for you and how, as a result of the very strong positive experience you had with strong management, strong supervision, strong feedback, strong expectation setting, that you're now here today as a result. And those two approaches of hitting people in the fields, but also hitting people with the data, really is just a 1-2 punch that has overwhelmingly worked every single time.
I really like that. And I'm curious, Caitlin, how do you collect feedback on intern managers? And then, act on it, whether it's good feedback, not so good feedback, how do you all do that at MongoDB, and what have you found that's worked well?
Yeah, a few things. So we run midpoint or mid-program and end of program surveys asking interns about clarity of expectations, frequency and quality of feedback, manager support, and availability. Those are like the three big buckets. Interns are usually honest. I feel like I've been in early talent for what, 14, 15 years now, and I think interns are getting more and more honest and more confident giving feedback, which I actually appreciate. So then we pull themes to share with managers. And then when there are serious issues that are flagged, we follow up one-on-one to support both the intern and the manager through the program ends or throughout the program and before it ends. The recruiters, like I mentioned, are program advisors, so they're the ones that work with the interns to gather the feedback as well as the managers.
That's awesome. I just looked at the clock and I want to make sure we have time for Q&A. We've got a couple already. If you have questions, feel free to jump them in here. But to everyone, and Jacob, I can start with you. Just kind of as you think about, tangible takeaways, one thing that someone here can take away from the conversation today to, improve their manager training, what would you say that would be, or one thing that you want them to take away from today?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is you really just need to ditch the one and done training, and really focus on building a rhythmic of ongoing support, peer sharing, building in some recognition too for it as well. I think like you really need to just consider, similar to what Katrina was sharing earlier and what I was going to talk about with our program, is like just consider a very blended approach. A one-time webinar conversation is not going to be the end all be all. And for all of the effort you do in putting together the curriculum for that, or even like, follow-up emails and stuff like that, like if you really just take such a limited approach like that, you're really not going to see the result you need. So you have to be willing to invest the time into building a multifaceted approach that allows you to, you know, touch on maybe some of those different learning styles, kind of similar to what Caitlin was talking about earlier, by offering different small components that kind of complement each other. It's a lot of work on the front end, I'm not going to lie, but once you really do get a very strong foundation set, it's really just, upkeep and slight tweaks here and there throughout. And in the long run, I think you'll end up spending less time if you invest the time now.
Katrina, how about you? One kind of tool or tip that you'd recommend for someone
Yeah,
listening?
I would agree 100% with what Jacob's saying. Almost seeing your manager learning path the same way you would look at your intern learning path. What do they need? What should they get from this experience? And really, be patient. Their managers are getting so much information from, your team, from the interns, from the business, and they're trying to, I always tell the interns when they're onboarding, you're trying to take a sip of water from a fire hydrant, and it's just a lot. And so with, building everything and having a lot of learning paths, just being patient also.
Awesome. And Caitlin, to close us out here, one tool, tip, thing you think someone listening should take away.
Yeah, I mean, going back to, I think, Parker, you might have said it. I mean, my biggest takeaway from, or hopefully that you all get from this call is like interns don't accept their full-time offers for the recruiters. They accept it based on their managers. And so driving that home with your manager training is really important. And then appreciating them in ways of doing something special for them or explaining that this is also investment in your career growth.
I love that. I've got a couple questions in here that I want to pull up for us here. We'll try to get to as many as possible. And Jacob, Katrina, Caitlin, just feel free to jump in here. Giselle said, how do you balance intern manager content to meet the needs of both experienced and first-time managers?
So I don't do this at MongoDB. I don't do this currently at MongoDB, but at my last company, we held our mandatory intern training, but only half the call was for everyone, and then half the call was just for the new intern managers. We also, in our toolkit, did have a section on new intern managers. It was more of a checklist, right, to make sure that they didn't forget anything. So I think just again, having that balance of different aspects. So your experienced managers don't feel like, oh, I have to take this whole training again. But our newer managers do have the hand holding.
Awesome. Leah said, how are you getting feedback from your interns at the end of the program? And how are you debriefing with managers that maybe struggle to convert interns to full-time?
Yeah, so I'll take this one. We actually are working on building this into About. We're an About customer, and so we have in the past kind of facilitated all of these, periodic check-ins with our interns. But what's really cool about About system is that it's kind of set up where it kind of operates for you, where you don't really have to do a lot of upkeep with it. And so basically, after I get the feedback from the interns throughout, then I can immediately kind of take that information on an Excel sheet, do a mail merge, and kind of present it in a really nice format to give to managers. And I think what we always make sure to do is I don't want to have the conversation telling them how they need to manage interns better. We really empower our partners and our business unit leaders to have those conversations. We make sure that they feel prepared to have those reinforcing conversations, and really provide specific feedback for them to share and specific examples for our interns that they have shared so that they can really reflect on some of those things. And then if it turns into that they feel like they need additional support or training, then we'll have sort of like an HR 30-minute one-on-one with them, and kind of talk through maybe some of those struggles that they still feel like that it's not connecting, or if they feel frustrated with some of the feedback, to really help them understand that it's a growing and a learning process too, and learning to be a really strong effective manager takes time, and then really just kind of giving them that individual one-on-one support in that 30-minute meeting.
Awesome. Thanks, Jacob. This is an interesting one. How senior or junior should intern managers be? Could it serve as a learning experience for someone more green? And, what would the qualification section look like if you were putting together a job description for intern managers?
I can answer part of that question at least. So, part of our intern manager training where we work with the L&D team, they actually encourage newer folks who have never managed before to start with the intern program, to be an intern champion. And so that is kind of a subset to being a manager. You're not necessarily a manager, but you meet with the intern like weekly. You kind of get a feel of what being a manager would be like. And we also include the champions in all of our training. So our L&D team kind of sees it as a way to get a taste of what management looks like. If you're a manager who wants to maybe push someone in that direction of management to see if they're even interested in it, this is a way for them to get some of that experience without necessarily being a manager. But in my opinion, we have managers all types of ranges, someone who's never managed before to someone who's managed for years. And I don't necessarily know what you would put on a job description, but I think everyone should get an opportunity and be there as it gets a chance to.
Awesome. When you receive mediocre feedback on an intern manager, who's having the conversation with that intern manager on what they need to improve with in mind, to make sure that for some reason they don't turn against the intern if it's midsummer and they're, told, hey, you need to make some adjustments.
I actually have my recruiters do it, that are program managers for the summer. It builds their confidence in working with these individuals for hiring for next year, and they're partnering with them throughout the year. Now, if things don't improve or if we see anything retaliating, of course, we would escalate that to our HR business partners. But usually it's a good conversation, and it's just they're not aware of certain feedback or how interns are perceiving things.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I would add, like, at the end of the day, like, we do trust them to be professional, but if we do sense that like maybe there is going to be some hostility, we'll just work immediately with the business unit leader to um, ensure that immediately that, and it's kind of easier in the world of public accounting, I'll be honest, like to just switch them off in an engagement, switch someone else on it so they have an experience of working with someone else. Sometimes we do find that after getting some tough feedback, just by shifting who they're working with, they immediately they see it as an opportunity, as a fresh start and a fresh opportunity to make a good impression. And then we see a lot of times just from that simple adjustment that a really big improvement in their performance as a manager and managing those interns.
I see someone asked about a manager toolkit. We can share one afterwards with you of an example as well, just to have in there. I know we're 2 minutes past, so I want to cut us off, make sure everyone has time to go grab lunch, coffee, etc. But thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time today. We really appreciate joining, and I'll be sending an email with the recording afterwards. Obviously, feel free to reach out to all four of us for any questions, follow-ups on LinkedIn along the way. But Katrina, Caitlin, Jacob, thanks, y'all. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thanks.